I've been teaching 30 years in sixth form colleges at the end of this year. 30 years. No, I've never been able to do anything else but teach. That is my sole job I've ever done. So I was 24 when I started, and worked in Surrey, and I worked in Hampshire, and then came here 12 years ago to Cirencester College. Both the love of my subject, really, so I'm not sure I would ever have wanted to be a physics teacher. I wanted to be an English teacher. English is just the best subject to teach. It's just the most interesting, the most engaging, the most rewarding in terms of your involvement with students and your involvement in the text. But it is also true that it's fantastic spending time with young people. It's a really exciting job in that way. I like it a lot. I've never for a second in 30 years regretted doing it. I've always thought it was the best thing, the best decision I've ever made, really. It does, and actually that's, in a way, that becomes nicer the older that you are. There's a sense of being in touch with young people and their interests, and of course then it's tremendous fun too. People are very funny, you know, so yeah, it's been fantastic. It's been a good job. Yeah, so I've always liked the colleges I've worked at, but I think I've liked this more than any place I've worked. Partly, I think it's a particular combination. I think it's very focused on students and supporting them and getting them to do well. So I'm like in the first week here, I really noticed that, how polite teachers are with students, how concerned they are. But it combines that with being easygoing and relaxing and a really, really pleasant working environment, both I think for staff and students. Yes, okay, so English, the best subject because, so I'm not knocking chemistry. I'm not saying chemistry is a bad subject, obviously it is, but I'm going for, in chemistry, I don't think a student will ever say things that the teacher hasn't thought of. Whereas I go for English, if I go through a day where that happens, it's rare, I'll often go through 20 minutes in a lesson where 7 students say things I've never thought of before, and it makes me look at it afresh, and I teach it differently. So you feel yourself that you're on a learning curve, you know, through the process of teaching. It's not like you have all the information and you're giving it to young people. It's you're involved in a conversation, in a dialogue, which is just exciting. It's really exciting to do. We do creative writing. That's our big thing in the department. So we have a creative writing group. We do support groups for the courses, but in terms of things completely outside the subject, it's our creative writing course which really matters for us. And we produce at the end of the year a book collection of student work that they've produced, and there's some outstanding writing gets done, really. A few years ago we had someone win the Christopher Tower Prize, which was an Oxford Prize, £3,000 they won for writing a poem. And so again, that's a testament, I think, to how good the students are here, really, and how committed they are to that. People stay in touch, really. Probably you're more likely to stay in touch with people who do English at university. That's your most likely thing. So Alice, for instance, went off to do Sheffield. She finished this summer, she'd finished, but she came back last year to do some teaching in her third year. Came back to do some teaching, and yeah, absolutely loving it. So yeah, those people particularly, Josephine Broad-Drake, who have carried on to do English. We stay in touch with them, and we like it if they do. I think sometimes students are a bit worried about staying in touch. They think, well, you wouldn't want to hear from them, but actually everyone's always really delighted when someone emails, particularly if they email and say, well, thanks very much, it's really good, and now I'm really enjoying university. Good question, isn't it? Very good question. See, I'm really tempted to take The Great Gatsby by Scott Fitzgerald, because reading in class yesterday, I virtually brought myself to tears reading the final page of it. It is just the best ending, fantastic. But I think in the end, I'd go Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. It's a novel I've read, I think, 30 times probably, and I never read it without seeing something new. It is the most amazing piece of writing, and I don't think I'd ever get bored of it, If you think about the opening of it, you don't know, first time you're reading it, you've no idea who anyone is when Lockwood arrives in this mad household, and so it's a completely different experience when you reread it, because you go, oh, that's Hareton, okay, and so you have a very different sense of it. Fantastically good. It just has the best descriptions of given that it's a Victorian novel written by the daughter of a traditional, conventional Victorian cleric, that actually has the best descriptions of violence you could possibly imagine. It's like a mid-Victorian novel in which someone has their head crushed against the floor, in which we were talking today about Isabella, where she gets a knife thrown into the side of her head and she takes it out to carry on shouting abuse. It's just absolutely astonishing piece of writing. You see, that is very interesting, isn't it? Because the author who helps me most in life in terms of reading would be Philip Larkin, whose poetry I think is fantastic, but he is so depressive as a character that he would be impossible to have on your island, so he couldn't possibly go. So you'd really like to look for somebody nice and comfortable, even if you thought the work wasn't quite so good. And I would be, who would possibly object to being on a desert island with Alan Bennett? He would be a perfect companion, wouldn't he? So Alan Bennett, I'd go for that. Your most memorable moments, I think, are the moments where students say things. Actually, they are the most memorable moments for as a teacher. And you can actually think back, when you teach books again, you can actually think back to students saying things. And teaching The Tempest this year, I can think back 4 years and think, a point Beth Watson made about how Caliban talks about the island and uses the natural world as a kind of currency. That's just fantastic point. So those are the most memorable moments for the teacher. For the students, there was the time where they arrived a little bit late and I was reorganising the room, which I like to do, and a little bit cross and saying, can you get yourself organised? I'm a bit tired of people coming in late and really need to get yourself organised and get control. And as doing that, I was carrying chairs around with me, and as someone arrived, I turned with some irritation towards them, only to swing the chair against the whiteboard and sliding the chair straight through the whiteboard, whereupon there was quite an amused response. So I said, okay, sit down. Went and got the person in charge of IT at the time, and she came over in front of all the students, looked at it and went, yeah, that's toast. So in the process of telling them off for being more organised, I had caused, how much was it, about £4,000 worth of damage by 9:02 in the morning. It's not very memorable for me because I try and forget it. I think it probably was for the students. They never let me forget it.